Welcome to the Switchblade Sisters Social Club, a true crime podcast where two sisters exploit their worst fears for your entertainment. You're welcome. I'm Dee.
And I'm Rhonda, and together we are the Sake Sisters. For more information, check out our website at www.switchbladesistersocialclub.com or find us on Instagram and Facebook at Switchblade Sisters Social Club.
Thanks for listening. Hi, my name's Dee, and this is my sister Rhonda.
Hi!
And we are Switchblade Sisters Social Club, a true crime podcast where two sisters exploit their worst fears for your entertainment. You're welcome. Why do I say that so annoying? It's got more and more annoying. You're welcome. But yes, you are very welcome, and we are also very grateful. We've decided to just not chit-chat. It feels weird.
Because it's a Monday. We got nothing to tell you.
Literally nothing to say. Also, the people
that's suitable for public consumption.
I mean, to be honest, we put it all out on the table anyway, so what have we not said on here? But also, the People's Pulse is getting longer and longer. So if you want chit-chat and no true crime, fast forward to the end. We're giving you options. We're giving you options. So, yeah, I'll tell you what, we'll do a little bit of a plug because we haven't in ages. First of all, Patreon. Go on our Patreon, have a look. If you follow us on Patreon, if you sponsor us or support us or whatever the fucking word is on that platform, on any amount, then you get a bunch of extra bonus content. You can watch the videos of our podcast episodes, the uncut videos, so even more of us. If you think that's a good thing, you can pay for it. And we've also got a bunch of codes that we can give you. So CrimeCon, London and Glasgow. They've just announced Glasgow is in April this year. So, next year. So in 2024, it's going to be like flip reverse the other way around. Glasgow in April and London in September. And you can buy tickets for either of those or both of those with our code SSSC, and you will get 10% off. And we get to hang out together, which would be awesome. And then we've also got Crime and Investigation channel, Crime and Investigation Play. If you use the code SSS Club, you get 50% an annual subscription, making it for a whole fucking year, $14.99. I just canceled my trial subscription to Financial Times. I needed one article from it, so I signed up for a trial for £1 for a week. And after that 1 week, it was going to go up to £55 a month.
What? That's insane. That's more than Netflix. That's my benchmark. If it's more than Netflix, too much.
But that's like 10 fucking times more than Netflix. So to get a whole streaming service channel for $14.99 for an entire year, not a month, a year. I mean,
madness. Now, also, this is an opportune time to mention our podcasting course, which you can get at the link in bio or on our website if you want to know the A to Z of starting and launching a successful podcast. And lastly, our merch. If you want to wear mine and Dee's face on your boobs, shop our merch. We got glasses, as in like drinking glasses. We got mugs, we got cushions, we got bum bags.
Bum bag is so good. Every time I use the bum bag, I get comments like,
so useful.
Positive ones, I should say.
I still wear a bum bag like I did in the 90s, not this new like.
I don't think we even wore one in the 90s.
No, we did, because we got some free ones from McDonald's. They're black.
I remember
and
those.
Yeah.
I remember those. They were
still
awesome.
Have
they
them.
were.
Yeah. I don't wear.
You still have them?
Yeah, one of them pink, black and pink. Yeah. Back in the day when McDonald's had really good fucking toys, not none of this cardboard shit they got now. Anyway, yeah.
Books. What's with the fucking books?
Oh my god, I should really invest in McDonald's the amount of times they come here in a week. So today,
let me finish my cracker so that I can tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Just tell me the fucking story.
Today, our listeners might be happy or maybe sad. I don't know. I'm actually going to talk about murder again.
Going back to murder.
Yeah. So you know how I had like a detour and last one I presented was on medical crimes? I'm back to murder. And this one piqued my interest when we had our dearest beloved Adam from Graveline Tours. Yeah. So he talked about what?
No, I just want to guess. No, I want to guess.
Guess then.
Because I'm going to guess that it's something that he mentioned.
Yeah, it is something he mentioned.
Oh, it's not the Black Dahlia.
Nope.
Is it the woman from Wizard of Oz?
Nope. Oh, no.
Is it Janis Joplin?
Nope.
Oh, no, she's not murdery. Is it Manson family?
Nope.
All right.
Okay, so today I'm going to talk about Lyle and Erik Menendez. Yes. Yes, I'm gonna.
Why did I not guess them?
I don't know why you didn't guess them. But should I tell you the story?
Just tell me the fucking story.
Okay, so Joseph Lyle Menendez, born January 10th, 1968, and Erik Menendez, born November 27th, 1970, are American brothers convicted in 1996 of the murders of their parents, José and Mary Louise Menendez. So this is a story of parasite.
Sorry, remember what's the age difference?
2 years.
They're kind of like us, but like.
Oh no, don't say they're kind of like us.
No, I always like to think, how old are they in relation to me, and how old were they in relation to me at a time? I need to work that out. And they're siblings.
The siblings, yeah. And do you remember? So do you remember when we did the episode with Like Mother, Like Murder? We used to be called Wine Time. Now, Like Mother, Like Murder. They're amazing.
So very early on in season 1, we did an episode with them, a collab with them.
Yeah, they are amazing. 2 girls, so funny. If you like us, you'll love them. So check them out. We did an episode on parasite, remember, which means murdering parents. Okay, so the Menendez family seemed to be a perfect American dream style family. And Jose, the father, was born in Cuba and emigrated to the US as a teenager after the Cuban Revolution in the 50s. At university, he met Mary Louise Anderson, who was a beauty pageant queen, who everyone called Kitty, and they married in the early 60s and moved to New York City, where Jose got an accounting degree. He then rose from washing dishes to becoming a successful entertainment executive. Jose spent the early 80s as the head of RCA Records and had a hand in signing bands like Duran Duran, the Eurythmics, and Menudo. Remember the band that Ricky Martin was in?
I don't think I knew any about, I don't think I remembered that he was involved in the music industry.
Yeah, well, Ricky Martin.
No, I know that. I meant the dad.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so do you know this story?
Yeah, I know it, but I just I haven't watched many documentaries on it, weirdly. I just remember it kind of being from in real time when it was unfolding.
So I will quote my sources at the end, but there's a really good podcast episode on Court TV podcast. Really fun.
Love it.
Yeah. So the Menendez family moved with their 2 sons from New Jersey to Los Angeles so that Jose could take a job in the movie business. So Joseph Lyle Menendez, we will call him Lyle, that's how he was known, was born on January the 10th in 1968 and grew up outside of Princeton, New Jersey. He was the older son, and with his brother Erik. They grew up wealthy and privileged. However, their father put a lot of pressure on them to succeed in school and athletics. And after the family moved to LA in 1986, the brothers grew more rebellious under the tight grip of their dad.
So they would have been, in 86, they were like 20.
Yeah.
18, 20.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So after their family moved, Lyle returned to New Jersey the following year by enrolling at Princeton University, but was suspended a year later for plagiarism. And although he was shy and quiet, Erik, the younger brother, grew up emulating his older brother, Lyle. And after the family moved to LA, the boys fell in with a more sort of, the wrong crowd. And Erik was arrested twice for burglary in 1988, but avoided jail time. But he attended...
Because he was rich.
Yeah. but he attended court-ordered therapy with Dr. Jerome Oziel, who will become a key figure. Okay, so so he also took an interest in screenwriting, ominously creating a script about a son who murders his wealthy parents, which is exactly what fucking happens in this story. So the house where Jose and Kitty were killed was located on one of the most exclusive blocks in Beverly Hills.
And if you want to know more about how those blocks work, then go back and listen to
that was interesting, huh?
It was so interesting, because what was it, like the higher the number, the richer you are, and that there's snobbery between on this one street.
Crazy, huh? Because it's all fucking wealthy, you know. But anyway, so their house was at different times occupied by Michael Jackson and Elton John. And Lyle, the older brother, was a star tennis player and seemed destined for a career in business, like the father that he openly worshipped. Erik turned out to be even better at tennis, helped by his father's obsessive intervention, because his dad really wanted them both to be star athletes and very academic. And he actually ended up being a nationally ranked player in his age bracket. So in a sense, they had no choice but to succeed and be successful. Jose was known as a hard-driving father who would work his children to the bone in athletics and everything else. So
we're so lucky we didn't have a dad that pushed us in athletics.
Oh God.
Even the thought of it makes us laugh.
Oh God, it's not the Arab way. So their former swim team coach told the LA Times in 1990, it seemed like Jose was so competitive. He was doing everything he could to try to make Erik better, but he was so completely overbearing. It had the opposite effect. Erik had so much less self-confidence because everything he did was never good enough. So I know it is sad. It is sad. And there is a big question about who was the victim in all of this. So the crimes. On the evening of the 20th of August, 1989, Jose and Kitty were standing in the den of their Beverly Hills mansion when Lyle and Erik entered the den carrying shotguns. Jose was shot 6 times, including the fatal shot in the back of the head with a Mossberg 12-gauge shotgun, and he was shot by Lyle. Kitty was shot 10 times in total before the fatal shot to her cheek, and she was on the ground, slowly crawling and moaning when the last shot was fired. Lyle then ran to his car to reload and then fired Lyle ran to the car to reload and fired the fatal shot to her face.
Wow. So she was shot 9 times before.
Yeah, so shot by Erik first, and then Lyle shot the final bullet that killed her. Immediately after the killings, both brothers remained in the house, expecting the police to respond due to the noise of the shotguns. When the police arrived, the brothers told them that the killings had occurred while they were out at a movie theater seeing Batman and attending the Taste of LA festival at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium. The police did not seek gunshot residue tests from the brothers, which would have indicated whether they had recently discharged a firearm. And had the police done that, the case wouldn't have gone on for as long as it did. So initially, the brutality of the crime led detectives to theorize that it was a hit ordered by organized crime or disgruntled business associates. The brothers, who were seemingly devastated by their parents' deaths, were not immediate suspects. They conveyed the image of grieving sons, even holding an elaborate tear-filled memorial service. And when they made the call to the police, it did sound very genuine.
I've heard clips of the
yes, yeah.
In
the months after the
that could be genuine emotion.
Well, shock at what they've done. I'm
shock
sure.
and you know what I mean. I'm not. They're lying about which emotion it is, but it's not a surprise that after killing their parents, they're not going to be cool, calm, and collected. No.
So in the months after the killings, the brothers began to spend extravagantly on luxury items, business, and travel. And Lyle bought Chuck's Spring Street Cafe, a buffalo wing restaurant in Princeton, New Jersey, as well as a Rolex and a Porsche Carrera. Erik hired a full-time tennis coach and competed in a series of tournaments. Sorry, let me say that again. Erik hired a full-time tennis coach and competed in a series of tournaments. The brothers eventually left the Beverly Hills mansion unoccupied, choosing to live in adjoining flats in nearby Marina del Rey. They also dined expensively and went on trips to the Caribbean and London. And they collectively spent approximately $700,000 before they were arrested. But family members later disputed a connection between their spending and the murder of their parents, claiming that there were no changes in their spending habits after the killings because they were.
Or what? So they always just spent 700,000.
Yeah, they were so rich that apparently their spending after the murder of their parents was not really any different to how they used to spend before.
Part of me thinks if you've got money and you've just had a horrible experience, you're going to want to distract yourself, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that that's an indication of guilt necessarily. You know, that can be a coping mechanism, you know. People handle grief. You know, I don't know if they felt grief, but people handle grief differently. So on August 5th, just 2 weeks before the murder, the family accompanied Erik to an important USTA national tournament in Michigan, tennis one. Erik won his first rounds in the 18 and under singles event, but was defeated in the second round. Erik, in a relative disclosed, was looking forward to trying out for the UCLA varsity tennis team when he started his freshman year in the fall of that year. And then on Friday, August 18th, someone used, okay, let me start that again. So Lyle had a roommate called Donovan Goodrow when he was at Princeton University. They had a falling out, which led to Donovan Goodrow being kicked out. And then...
Wait, of their room or of the uni?
Of their room.
Okay.
They had a shared room. He then noticed that his wallet had been stolen. And it was actually his driver's license that was used as identification to buy the two 12-gauge shotguns in a sporting goods store in San Diego. And
Goodrow's.
Yeah, they used. So Erik, who was apparently the same height and similar weight to Goodrow, actually bought the shotguns because he could pass himself off as Donovan,
Right.
and used his license to buy the guns. And information on a federal form that was filled out during the sale had Goodrow's license number, but a fake San Diego address. And the last time he saw it, his wallet, was 2 days before he was asked to move out of Lyle's dorm room in a dispute over missing cash. So Donovan says he sometimes kept his wallet in a box on Lyle's dorm room desk. He also says he and Lyle used each other's ID from time to time in Princeton and used to practice each other's signatures. So it was his...
I mean, why and weird?
Yeah. Do you know, a lot about this story reminded me of the Murdoch case.
Mm.
A lot of it did, where I think when you've got such corrupt parents, it trickles down, especially when the parents are openly corrupt and encouraging that behavior. So, you know, I'm going to talk
allegedly.
Later about, yeah. I mean, I'm going to talk later about, you know, whether Erik and Lyle were victims or not.
To what extent they were.
Yeah, to what extent. But the parents obviously didn't instill them with the best values. And it really reminded me of the Murdoch case, where corrupt parents, you know.
I have to say, we don't have corrupt parents. We have very, very disciplined parents. And yet, when I was tasked with setting up a new clocking in system at work in one of my jobs, where we had to every morning put our finger, you know, to clock in and clock out so that it would be recorded. What we all did in the office was register a different finger per person. So if someone, let's call her Schnorine, or Smerry Skler, or Schmeila, for example, was late for work, we could, someone else could clock in for them using a different digit.
That is so funny.
So I don't know whether that's the equivalent, but I can't see the advantage of, like, unless it's an age thing, using each other's fake IDs and practicing each
I
other's...
don't know. It's not the most important detail of this story.
All right, okay.
But it just shows that there's some shadiness there. That is why I included that fact. So during the early years of the investigation, the police tried to narrow down their search to suspects who had motives to kill Jose and Kitty. And they also investigated potential mob leads. As their investigation continued, they began to suspect that the brothers were the most likely perpetrators because of the obvious financial motive and their crazy spending after the killings. In an attempt to get a confession from Erik, the police arranged for his friend Craig Signorelli to wear a wire during a lunch with Erik at a local beachfront restaurant. But when Signorelli
That's no friend?
No. But when Signorelli asked Erik whether he had killed his parents, Erik denied it. But interestingly, their dad had written, Jose had written a second will, and Lyle suspected that they had been written out of the will. And so what he did 11 days after they murdered parents, he got an IT expert to wipe the computer where the will was stored. Yeah.
Couldn't the IT expert find the will so they could look at it before deleting it? I don't know.
Good point.
I guess, do you know what? This is 89, isn't it?
Yeah, I was surprised. I was thinking they didn't have scanners back then, did they? How did you get a will? It was apparently a handwritten will, but he got an IT expert to wipe the hard drive because they had an old version of the will.
That benefited them.
Yes. So that happened 11 days after the murder. Okay, so the brothers taped confessions. So there's a key figure called Dr. Jerome Oziel, who was their psychiatrist. And he received a call from Erik, who made the confession to him over the phone. And Dr. Oziel convinced them to meet in person, and he actually got a taped confession. He somehow convinced them that he needed to tape this. And, you know, the only reason this came out was because Dr. Oziel was having an affair with one of his patients called Judalon Smith. And that's dodgy in itself because
total no-no for a psychiatrist.
Yeah, she actually contacted him, Dr. Oziel, because she wanted to attend one of his seminars. He talked her out of that and said, no, come see me as a patient. And so they did, and they started having an affair. So, I mean, it's a horrible abuse of power or whatever. But anyway, she was the one who actually went to the police. So it wasn't Dr. Oziel, it was actually the lady.
So she went to the police about him and her having an affair?
No, about that he had a taped confession. Interesting, huh? So it may never have gotten out had she not, I mean, I think the police would have eventually come to that conclusion, but they wouldn't have had the evidence had she not told the police. Yeah, had she not told the police.
Legend.
So she's
that woman, legend.
Yeah, she's a key figure. So after the murders, Dr. Oziel reached out to his former patient, Erik, and began counseling him. And soon enough, Erik confessed to killing his parents. Oziel confided in the lady he's having an affair with, Judalon Smith. And she, as I said, she played a big part in that. And the therapy sessions continued, and Oziel ultimately got both Erik and Lyle on tape confessing to the murders. Erik said they'd done it to put their mother out of her misery, while Lyle made it clear they were both in on the crime. Judalon Smith and Oziel had a rocky relationship. She claimed he was controlling and abusive, which I believe, because the fact that he coerced her into having therapy sessions, you know, and then had an affair with her is dodgy.
And then he threw patient confidentiality out the window when he's talking to her about the Menendez Brothers sessions.
And he had also allegedly attacked Judalon, and she contacted Beverly Hills police to reveal that the Menendez brothers confessed to their parents' murder and that it was on audio tape. Okay, oops. Sorry, one sec. My Microsoft Word is being weird.
Fine.
Okay. So Lyle was arrested on March the 8th, 1990, and Erik, who was in Israel at the time for a tennis tournament, flew to Miami and then to LA, where he turned himself into the police on March 11th, 3 days later. Both were held without bail and kept separate from each other. So figuring out whether the tapes with the confessions fell under doctor-patient privilege or were admissible as evidence in court took 2 full years. With lawyers, isn't that crazy? It's like, if they've confessed, they've confessed. You know, fuck the rest.
And also, yeah, and I thought that it was like, if it was to do with a crime, then it was.
Then I thought that doctors, were able to divulge
Also,
that it was
2 years, because all the victims, accused, everyone, that's your whole life in limbo.
Yeah. So it took 2 years, with lawsuits and appeals flying back and forth between the prosecution and Menendez's lawyers. So finally, the Supreme Court of California ruled that 2 of the 3 tapes were eligible to be used in a trial, including one that contained Lyle's admission of guilt. And then in August 1990, Eric James Albrecht ruled the tapes of the conversations between Erik and Oziel were admissible evidence, since Oziel stated that Lyle allegedly threatened him and violated doctor-patient privilege. And the ruling was appealed, after which the proceedings were delayed for 2 years. Crazy, right? And the Supreme Court of California ruled in 1992 that most of the tapes were admissible, with the exception of the tape on which Erik was recorded discussing the murders. After that decision, an LA County grand jury issued indictments in 1992 charging the brothers with murders of their parents. Now, I'm never that interested in the court cases. I'm more interested in like the psychology of why the fuck they did it. But what was interesting is that both brothers had 2 separate juries as well. Yeah, and it was on TV, on court TV, like the Amber Heard Johnny Depp case.
And I kind of feel like it might have been one of the first ones.
Yeah, so that was new at that time. And also apparently their defense team told the brothers to dress very preppy and wear, instead of wearing suits, wear pastel colored jumpers and look very sort of boyish and childish to portray innocence, and apparently, interestingly, the word sociopath was banned in court to describe them, because the judge said that it was too loaded to use that word. But I thought actually it may very well be appropriate.
Yeah, but had they been diagnosed? Like, had they been assessed by?
No, not that I'd come across.
Well, then, okay, you can't call them a sociopath, and if they've in court, if they've not been.
Yeah, but apparently it was like the first time a word had been banned in court.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. So the question of doctor-patient confidentiality held up the case for nearly 2 years. However, it was eventually ruled that I said that. Sorry, get rid of that. And the trials were broadcast on TV and quickly became a media sensation. And Erik and Lyle's defense argued that the brothers had no choice but to murder their parents. Erik testified that after confronting his parents about the sexual abuse he'd suffered at his father's hands since childhood, José threatened to kill him if he didn't keep it a secret. Now, this is one of the biggest details of the whole case. So José was said to have basically molested both his sons from the age of 6. And in terms of evidence, there's a few bits of evidence. Hold on. Okay, so Erik told his cousin when he was 10 that his dad used to, quote unquote, massage his dick. But he told his cousin Andy not to tell anyone. And that made me so sad, because I just thought, it's he was telling his cousin who was only 2 years older, but had that cousin told an adult, the story could have ended differently, Also, a female cousin who used to occasionally stay at their home in the basement bedrooms, who was from Kitty's side of the family, said that Erik asked her one night, he came downstairs and asked if he could stay downstairs with her because he said his dad used to abuse him. And this cousin told their mother. She actually did go and tell their mother. But the mother said that Erik was lying and took him back upstairs. So I don't know whether Kitty was aware of it I suspect she was, because she was also being abused by Jose. But it just makes me sad because, Erik at least had told people.
I don't think anyone on any side of the court case would deny that the father was very strict and controlling and borderline abusive in that sense, at the very least, even the ones on his defense, but yeah, this sort of defense of the boys that he was sexually abusing them, it was really sad because it got met with a lot of what's the word, criticism that they were making it up and so forth.
And apparently at that time in court cases, even if there was sexual abuse within families, it wasn't often talked about even in court cases. But Jose Menendez's sister actually said in court that her brother was frightening, abusive, and domineering, and that Erik would cry if he even touched him. So it really makes me sad. It really makes me, that part really makes me sad. Also in court, it was said that no one who knew Jose ever had a good word to say about him other than his secretary. So he was universally known to be a real fucking monster of a guy. Also, Kitty, the mother, was no angel, because she was heard saying in front of her kids, with the aunt as a witness, so Jose's sister, that she wishes she didn't ever have the kids because they ruined her marriage. So neither parent, in my opinion, should have been a parent. So it's sad. Okay, so Erik testified that after confronting his parents about the sexual abuse he'd suffered at his father's hands since childhood, Jose threatened to kill him if he didn't keep it a secret. And in court, Lyle stated, "I thought we were in danger. I felt we had no choice. He would kill us. He'd get rid of us in some way." And they also have family members who knew about the abuse. So the cousin Andy, who I mentioned was 12 years old when Erik was 10 and told him, and the cousin Diane Vander Molen from Kitty's side of the family, and they testified in court too. Additionally, a photograph of Lyle and Erik's genitalia they claim was taken by their father when they were children was presented as evidence. On the other side, the prosecution made a strong case about the brothers' carefully devised plan to stage the murder of their parents and then live a life of luxury with the inheritance they would receive upon their parents' death. Both trials ended with deadlocked juries. During the retrial, the judge limited testimony about the sexual abuse. He also did not permit the jury to vote on manslaughter charges instead of murder charges. This jury, as a result, was much less sympathetic to the brothers' struggles at the hands of their parents. And both Lyle and Erik were convicted on 2 counts of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Both were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And the trials...
This was one of the key things that has played a big part in future cases, right? How much long-standing abuse can be a defense for murder, and we've had it in domestic abuse cases with husbands and wives and so forth. So yeah, that was fascinating.
A few years ago, there was a lady who was in her 60s, and she was, had always been the perfect wife, well, I say perfect wife, submissive to her husband, subservient. And one day she just took I think it was an axe or a hammer to his head. But it was after years of torment. And even her son said it was after years of torment. This was completely out of character. But in her mind, this was, I don't know, self-defense, maybe, I don't know. But, I think that needs to be taken into account.
So I'm not surprised that if you take out the whole reason for this, a large contributing factor to why they do something, the jury's less sympathetic.
Yeah. And on that note, we will take a break.
Let's take
one back. Okay, so the trials began in 1993 with separate juries for each brother and were broadcast on relatively new cable network called Court TV. And as I mentioned...
Sorry. So they were both in court at the same time, but they each had separate juries.
Yes.
Crazy.
And it was on Court TV. And as I mentioned, I listened to the Court TV podcast, which is really good. And this TV channel was devoted to turning the legal system into a hybrid of entertainment and sporting event, which, you know, questionable, but interesting.
But nice to be able to see it.
Yeah. So the network carried out not only the trials, but also endless hours of coverage before and after each day's proceedings. This helped fuel a national obsession with the case that had all the elements of a great primetime soap opera. So Steve Brill, the founder of Court TV, told Rolling Stone magazine in 2017, the Menendez trials probably had the effect, maybe good, maybe bad, of demonstrating that even if you didn't have a celebrity, if the circumstances were dramatic enough, people will be captivated. We've had lots of trials like that since, but that was really the one that proved that people would be interested in watching big trials. And inside the courtroom, prosecutors argued the Menendez brothers were after their inheritance, but Lyle and Erik said they killed in self-defense. They said their father hadn't just had high expectations and doled out emotional abuse. José had, as we mentioned, molested them for years. Lyle from the age of 6 to 8 and Erik from the age of 6 to 18. A claim filled with graphic descriptions that shocked the nation, split friends and family members. And Erik's lawyer, Leslie Abramson, who became a star during the trial and worked alongside Lyle's lawyer, Gerald Shaleff, argued that the two were acting in self-defense after growing up in such a violent and traumatizing home. And I think, whatever you think of the Menendez brothers, that it's incontestable that happened.
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting evidence from other family members on both sides.
Yeah. So Lyle, who gave graphic testimony of his father's alleged abuse, said he had confronted José about sexually assaulting Erik days before the murders, and he took his father's angry response as a death threat. The defense also attacked Kitty, who struggled with alcoholism and drug addiction. They described her as the broken wife and useless mother that was devastated by José's many affairs. And the first trials lasted 6 months, and both resulted in hung juries, who were unable to agree on whether Lyle and Erik were guilty of murder or acting in their own self-defense. Immediately, it was announced that they would be retried together. And speaking of Kitty, yes, she was a victim of José as well. But I think aside from that, she is still a mother.
And the adult.
Yeah, who was told by her young son that he was being sexually abused by the dad. And I think it wouldn't have been hard to believe, knowing José's behavior and alleged affairs and all the rest. So to be honest, I don't like her at all.
I mean, I get it. I get that, like, she totally would have been a victim. It's never black and white, you know?
But when it comes to the protection of your own children,
yeah,
put fucking everything else aside, you know? That is black and white, you know? So the second trial took place in 1995 and was far less sensational, as Judge Stanley Weisberg did not allow TV cameras into the courthouse. The judge also ruled there was insufficient evidence that José had abused his sons, which was central to the defense's claims that the brothers had killed out of fear. More recently, this is another interesting fact, singer Roy Rossello of the boy band Menudo had also accused José of sexual assault.
I remember that.
Yeah. So Menudo was the Puerto Rican boy band formed in 1977 by producer Edgardo Diaz. And the original lineup featured 5 boys in their early teens, and they became an international sensation by the early 80s. And once the boys reached 15 or 16, they would be replaced by younger members. And
like just a conveyor belt.
Yeah, the former members were called Menendez. The former members were called in Menendez and Menudo Boys Betrayed, which was a documentary. So Roy Rossello, the singer, joined Menudo age 13 in 1983 and alleged in the documentary he was sexually abused by Diaz, the group's founder, for 3 years that he was in the band as well. Diaz did not respond to a request for comment for the Peacock documentary, but he has repeatedly denied the sexual abuse claims against him. And Rossello also alleged in the series he was molested by José Menendez, when he was head of RCA Records. And Rosello said that Diaz took him to Menendez's home, where Menendez actually drugged and raped him. And that's the man here, Rosello says in the series, pointing to a photo of José Menendez posing with Menudo after they signed to RCA in 1983. And he says, that's the guy, that's the pedophile. And Erik Menendez said in that documentary, Menendez and Menudo, Boys Betrayed, that he remembered seeing Rosello with his father in their home as a child. My dad was one of the guys that was choosing and selecting the new members of the group, Erik said. And I remember specifically taking one of the kids and going off and saying he wanted to talk to him. And they went off into the house upstairs. And then, so the Menendez brothers reunion. After spending over 20 years separated behind bars, I know, I knew that would make you sad, finally being housed at the same prison, and the reunion was an emotional one. So as of 2018, the last time Lyle and Erik saw each other was 1996. Can you imagine? Between 1996 and 2018, they hadn't seen each other. And the day in 1996, the brothers could see each other across a prison yard, but couldn't talk to each other. So they had hoped to be placed in the same prison, but were in separate vans, which took them to separate facilities. And while in separate prisons, they couldn't talk on the phone, but they did write letters to each other and would play chess, sending moves to each other through snail mail. I know, that's sad, isn't it? But behind bars, both brothers found wives, and Erik has been married for 20 years and Lyle for 14. So this Wednesday...
and we have an episode on that.
Oh, yeah, we do. We do.
Verstophilia. Met while incarcerated relationships.
Yeah. So after decades apart, the brothers finally came face to face at R.J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego. And apparently, the guards that led Lyle down the hallway to see Erik were surprised that he wasn't feeling more emotional. But then the guards said that once they opened the door and Lyle saw his brother, both Lyle and Erik burst into tears immediately. And they hugged each other for a few minutes without saying any words to each other. Then the prison officials let them spend an hour together in a room. And I knew that would make you sad. Okay, then. So the Menendez brothers case prompted a discussion about child abuse, particularly in affluent families where such issues might be more effectively hidden. The case also highlighted the pitfalls of media-influenced trials where public sentiment and spectacle might overshadow the facts. I also wondered whether actually they had negative bias because they were wealthy, you know, because they were seen spending money after their parents' death. But as other people had said, family members, that their spending was the same before. And normally it's people who are less wealthy, you know, more economically deprived that have the negative bias. But I think in this particular case, the fact that they were wealthy, they didn't have the same maybe sympathy.
And also I want to throw in there 80s, 90s, being Hispanic and wealthy was unusual.
Yeah.
It was not the norm. It's not today either. And I genuinely don't remember, because I was young when it all came out, how much that played a role. But I imagine that confused people and contributed to their biases.
Yeah. I think so much bias in a lot of these cases really affects public perception and the court of public opinion. But both Erik and Lyle remain incarcerated to this day. But over the years, they have expressed remorse for their actions. And as I said, both brothers, they got married in prison. Erik married Tammy Saccoman in 1999, and Lyle has been married twice, first to Anna Erickson and then to Rebecca Sneed, who is actually a defense attorney. They became involved when Rebecca was corresponding with Lyle via letters. And Tammy was moved with compassion, and she started writing letters to Erik, and that's how they first started communicating. So it still remains one of the most debated crimes in the US. And I think it's, like a lot of the cases, it's so multi-layered, you know.
And
obviously,
didn't Adam say in our episode with him, the Graveline Tours episode, that something's happening soon? Like, I think they might be up for parole appeal or something. So a case to watch out for. Set up a Google alert.
Yeah, I wonder what would have happened if they were tried today, you know, in a different cultural context. And I say cultural because the 80s was a different culture than now.
The post-Me Too movement.
Yes, exactly. I feel like that changed
post-Epstein, a bunch of these like alleged pedophile rings coming out and so forth. So I think entirely it would be tried differently. And I think that this new culture and new attitudes that we have, if they are up for parole at any point, is going to influence people's judgment on that. So yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, and sad. I mean, I have to say I feel for the brothers because I think it's incontestable that they had a horrendous life growing up, and obviously that doesn't justify what they did. And I'm also a little bit surprised they wouldn't hire a hitman.
Yeah, because the other complicating factor I think was their age, because they were both adults when this happened. So, I think the argument was like, why don't you just leave?
Yeah.
Or like, yeah. So it's not like they were sort of enforced to remain.
But at the same time, if their dad was as frightening as he was, and when you're conditioned from such a young age, conditioned by fear, I'm not sticking up for them. There is a chance that they did.
But I think that was a complicating factor in that it's not like they were still obliged to live in the house. It's not like they were still, teenagers, young adults, young kids or whatever. I don't know.
And that's the debate. Did they kill for the inheritance, knowing that they had been potentially written out of the will, or did they kill in self-defense?
Yeah.
Or a bit of both? So my sources were, as I mentioned, Court TV Podcast, Today.com, Biography.com, TheLineup.com, ABC News, and MenendezMurders.com. So
MenendezMurders.com, is that pro Menendez Brothers, anti Menendez Brothers, just neutral?
Yeah, neutral. As neutral as anything fucking can be.
On the internet, yeah.
Yeah. So I was very interested in that case, primarily because of the psychological aspect,
Because like when we're joking and we're not being serious, we would say things like, oh, he abused his kids, he deserves to get shot. But then when it actually fucking happens, where is the line? Like we always talk about, how much can that abuse justify the actions? Is it a case of like a bit of folie à deux, because the two of them doing it together? Do you remember we talked about that in hybristophilia as well? Where it's basically two people going mad at the same time or being irrational at the same time. Instead of, one of them being like, hey man, do you think we're going a bit too far?
But then at the same time, I also think, how could you ever have a really solid moral base if you weren't brought up with morality? How the fuck would you, A, a desperate situation, and B, if you never really were taught right from wrong or even know what love is, your moral
and if you're taught that like
different.
Violence and hurting someone physically, whether in an assault capacity or a sexual assault capacity, if you learn that that's how you resolve a situation, control a situation, get what you want from a situation, that's what they saw. And so it's, I don't think it's
clear cut. I think the whole thing is not clear cut.
But then at what age, because they were adults, at what age can you stop blaming what you were taught or what you were what you viewed as a child, or and do you have to accept responsibility because you're now an adult? This is why this case is so fascinating to so many people, because it brings up so many moral dilemmas. And it's fucked up. It's just fucked up either way.
So to cleanse the palate, we have the People's Pulse.
The People's Pulse. The People's Pulse. The People's Pulse. That's when I put it in,
So the People's Pulse today, I asked our listeners, what was your worst job? So I'm going to start with Joanne. So Joanne is
one of our sister friends.
Yeah, in a local in Twickenham.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, when I worked for my ex-boyfriend and we had no toilet, no running water, 1 bar of the gas fire allowed on at any one time, no chair, selling greasy, oily car spares, and we had to prove that my biro. So, and when I had, let me fucking start again. When I worked for my ex-boyfriend and we had no toilet, no running water, 1 bar of gas fire allowed on at any one time, no chairs, selling greasy, oily car spares, and when I had to prove that my biro had actually run out before being given a new one. Thankfully, I only worked there for 10 years. Oh, sounds grim. Yeah, grim.
Did she say it was her ex?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's her ex job and her ex-boyfriend, please God.
Yeah. So then, okay, Karen, Midlands Karen, I got it right.
Midlands Karen.
So I worked at Pizza Hut when I was a student, and one day they asked me if I would dress up as the mascot, Pizza Pooch. I don't remember Pizza Pooch, and we went a fair few times as kids to Pizza Hut. I don't remember that. I would have loved
Googling.
Yeah, I would have loved to see Pizza Pooch. I was like, yeah, sure. So they put me in this sweaty and smelly Pooch outfit and made me stand outside trying to encourage people into Pizza Hut. Small children kept running up.
Pizza Pooch and the Hut Mods.
Ugh, that yawn. Such an ugly yawner.
I don't recognize this.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Don't think it was a London thing. Like Toby Carvery.
Yeah.
So small children kept running up and kicking me, but obviously my vision was limited because I had a big stupid dog head on, and one pensioner poked me with her walking stick. It was the worst 4 hours of my life. And I can imagine 4 hours of doing that. When you're doing a job you hate, every minute feels like a fucking hour, right?
It's like the only way to slow down time.
So then we have Susie. I haven't even read this. I'm reading this one out.
I just know it's going to be amazing. Oh, wait. I just want to say, Susie inspired this question.
She did. And I told her, this is dedicated. This one is dedicated. This People's Pulse is dedicated to Susie. I've already told her that.
Because of her story.
Legendary story.
Of when she told her whole office that she had the shits. But the conditions of that job were just so horrifying that she inspired this.
Yes. So, since she said the worst job I ever had has got to be making car parts for Toyota. It was a job I had in the summer between my 2nd and 3rd year at university, and I lasted 3 days. It was 9 hours a day, either gluing or screwing parts together. It was awful. It would have been better if we could have listened to music, but for health and safety, we were not allowed to. I also worked for a bank on the tills. I lasted 4 months. It was so monotonous. We were expected to sell the bank products, like loans and mortgages on the desk. I'd never been sworn at so much in my life. Oh, interesting. Interesting in a bank, huh? People just wanted to do their transactions and go.
Oh, yeah. I mean, come on. If you're like, I just want to deposit 20 quid and someone's trying to sell you a fucking mortgage.
Yeah. And so she said not being held hostage by a bank cashier who wasn't allowed to give their bank book back until they've tried to sell something. My cue to leave was when we had to attend hold-up training. She put it in quotation marks, hold-up training, and what to do if the bank was held up or we were taken hostage. Yeah. I'd get the fuck out at that point too. So then,
yes, Susie,
we have Chris, who says worst job was sweeping the streets on the Strand and Waterloo Bridge at 18. Second job, extra early start. Oh God, second job. Sacked 2 days in for failing to spot and pick up all the used needles in the alleyway behind the Savoy. Eye-opening start to life in London. Do you know what? I was surprised. Fucking Savoy is posh.
Savoy is posh, but you know, most of London is not.
Then we have, our dearest Karen in the States. She said, worst job. Worked for a car dealer in the accounting department. Owner flaunting their wealth at the same time as telling me not to pay things because not enough money. On top of that, the boss was an alcoholic and we shared an office. Some days she would come in and say absolutely nothing to me. Other days, very abrupt and rude. Plus, the owner would fly off in a rage about the smallest things and be screaming in someone's face. I give myself credit, I lasted 6 months. I had worked on getting a bunch of stuff on the computer instead of manual. It was a long time ago. And never said anything to me on my last paycheck, she typed in, "Thank you. It was truly awful." And you know what? It makes me sad that anyone would be mean to Karen, because she is the sweetest, loveliest lady. Honestly, it fucking pisses me off.
Oh my God. Our listeners are resilient.
Karen, you do not deserve that. Then Mark. So I tagged Mark in this post and I said, "Mark, stop avoiding us." He hasn't contributed to this yet. So Mark, okay. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
So Mark said, "I can contribute to this one." I didn't give him much choice. He said, "I once spent a summer digging out and replacing blocked sewage pipes by hand."
Why by hand?
I don't know. He said, "I'll never forget the smell, going home and having to be," sorry, Dion. I'm so sorry. So sorry. It's because it's late. So sorry. Okay. Let's start that again. "I'll never forget the smell. Going home and having to be hosed off in the garden is something I never want to experience again." Can you imagine having to be hosed off after work before you can even enter the house? And people complain about like working in fish and chip shops because the smell. It doesn't get worse than this. I wouldn't have lasted like a second. I would be gagging the whole time. I need to ask Mark questions like, did you wear a mask? And
why did you have to use your hands? Did they not give you a shovel?
Were you wearing gloves? Yeah, were you wearing gloves?
Hazmat outfit? Yeah.
I need to know more. So then, Michelle, your friend Michelle.
Which one?
Michelle Morris. Didn't want to say her full name.
Oh, Michelle Dogwalker Michelle.
Yeah. So she said, "That's a tough one. Cleaning out a dog kennel after a dog had diarrhea and got so stressed he smeared it all over the kennel, literally floor to ceiling. I'm sad that he got stressed, the dog, but that's kind of fucking gross to have to do to clean.
Yeah. Poor dog, but also shit job. Yeah.
So trying to sort out a blocked up toilet in the gents' loo in a pub I was running, and no one bothered to tell me it pretty much flooded the entire bathroom." Oh. Then 3, she said, "Trying to clean up a dog that had rolled in fox poo and was covered from nose to tail before putting him back in my car. I have more, but they immediately sprang to mind." All of them involve poo. Yeah. I think, to be honest, in terms of bad jobs, if you've had to deal with poo, it doesn't get worse than that. So then we have one more contribution from my dearest oldest friend, Jamie, which I'm not even sure. I think it deserves its own category because it's not necessarily worst job, because there were a lot of endearing moments in this story, but she sent me a voice note. She was laughing and then gagging at certain points.
Do you want to play this voice note, or are you going to relay it?
It's so long. It's so long. I mean, I can, but it's so...
No, how long is long? Because you leave 5-minute voice notes.
I do. Let me see how long this is, because she tells it so well. I was considering just playing it. Oh yeah, I mean, it's like almost 6 minutes.
Just tell us.
Yeah. So, okay, so this is like not maybe worst, but weirdest fucking story. And it kind of reminds you of like when you take on a job and you think it's one thing, and then you get there and it's like the Twilight Zone and you end up doing all sorts of weird shit. You know? Have you had those jobs? Or like you end up doing...
No, but...
Or like you get asked to do the weirdest things. You're like, I'm sure this is not in my remit. Yeah, I'm sure this is...
this is the point where I tell you my shittest job.
Okay.
I've had some like jobs. I've had some jobs that I've been uninterested in. I worked for an amazing, fun lady, but I worked on collating a database of venture capitalists. Not my...
Boring.
Trying to think of a nice way to say that. I also had I think like my first sort of job was working as a mail services assistant in Hounslow Council, which was basically, I think it was 17, 18, and I worked with a bunch of women who were 50 plus. So most of them were fucking adorable. One of them allegedly killed her husband by throwing him off a balcony for abusing his daughter, allegedly. But the rest of them were lovely. They were just totally different generation. So it was me, age 17, 18, sitting around listening to a lot of women talk about their menopause. And my boss was my then boyfriend's mother.
Oh, forgot that fact.
And he worked in the building. So yeah.
Yeah.
But sorry, I was saying my worst job
Uh-huh.
was I got a fucking pub job in Brentford. I think I did 2 shifts because actually I thought I was working behind the bar. They made me cook the food, and by cook the food I mean fucking go to Tesco's, buy reduced ready meals and put them in the microwave for people. That's what the specials were. And then also babysit the boss's the bar owner's 2-year-old daughter. Fucking babysitting half the time.
Yeah,
so that
I remember that. Yeah, I remember. That's what I mean about jobs, that you take on a job and then what you actually are asked to do when you're there is totally fucking different and not what you're contracted
and
to
you do 1 or 2 things and then you're like, because you know, oh, I don't want to be difficult and new job, and then after a while you're like, hang on a minute. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Jamie's job.
Okay, so her job. So years ago, it's like almost 20 years ago, she worked as a dental receptionist at a surgery in the West End. It was near like Oxford Street, Carnaby Street area. And the surgery was in like an old house where the owners lived on the top floor, and the first few floors were like where the practice was, I guess, like the dentist rooms. Anyway, so the owners were like really elderly in their 80s, and the husband was a retired doctor. And the story was just a series of weird events, one after the other, or weird anecdotes. And so she was a dental receptionist, but she ended up being a carer for the elderly guy who's in a wheelchair, having to get him out of bed and stuff like that. Then, sorry, hold on. I'm trying to remember. Oh, and then she ended up one day, the wife asked, do you know how to sew? So she ended up having to stitch holes in lots of silk night dresses. And then she ended up having to make lunches for the guy. And then the weirdest bit was that she was asked one night to lock up, and the wife asked her to turn off the stove. So their home was on the top floor. So they had this creepy old lift, like the kind of lift with like those those grill doors and things. She's like, I'm not gonna fucking get myself stuck in that. So she walked up all the flights of stairs. So as she was going up the stairs, she like would smell something. The smell of something cooking got like stronger and stronger. So she got up there. She saw this pot of something on the stove, and she's like, oh, there's gonna be a fucking head in there or something. Anyway, so she opens it up and she said, I kid you not, it was an oxtail as long as my arm. And she said it looked like what she describes as a flesh dildo. And she's gagging and she's telling me this because the smell was horrendous. She's said
vegan.
Had, like, yeah, she's vegan. Yeah, the smell was horrendous. It was the size of her arm, looked like a dildo. And she said it had, you know, like it was a tongue, but she said it had a lot of the back part of the tongue. I mean, I'm a meat eater, but that she was gagging. She was telling me this. So anyway, yeah. So it's kind of just, I'm sure there's stuff I've forgotten. It was almost 6-minute voice note, but yeah, just fucking bizarre.
Bless her. Do you know why that happened?
Because she's so nice.
Because you have to pay a carer more than you have to pay a receptionist. Same as when I was working behind the bar and I was fucking babysitting, because you have to pay more for fucking childcare than you do someone behind the bar. That is why. These people know what they're fucking doing.
Do you know what?
Someone who's in healthcare, if it's a dental practice.
It's fucked over in their first few jobs. When you're young, you get so fucked over, don't you? Like, and I was thinking about my worst job, and then after reading some of those, I thought I'm not even going to insult our listeners by saying my worst job, because it is nothing like cleaning sewage pipes.
Was it teaching?
Do you know what? Teaching was my worst job, and it was nothing to do with the kids. If anyone's wondering, it was nothing to do with the kids. That being in the classroom was the best bit. But I will actually say that in teaching, and this is really fucking boring after some of these stories, there's a real culture of unpleasantness because of the hierarchy. So definitely in teaching, I've never been spoken to worse by other adults than I was in teaching. But my other worst jobs were just when I worked in guitar shops and for like older.
You've had a lot of people fucking run you to the ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look, I remember Piano Shop was fucking ridiculous.
Oh, that guy was an alcoholic who used to like bang his fists on tables and get angry. And then I worked in a
And I
guitar
remember
shop.
there were like times where you had like 1 day off in 3 weeks.
Oh God, it was
stuff
awful.
like
Yeah.
that. But again, that was early on in your career, working
you get
life.
fucked over. And then I worked in a guitar shop. And if anyone's a guitarist, they may have heard of Chandler Guitars. I'm going to name and shame, but they're closed now. It was a really famous guitar shop since the 70s. Loads of famous people came there. I actually met quite a few, was deeply unimpressed by them. But my boss there, on my first fucking day, I was 23 years old. He was in his 40s, asked me for a massage, and it went downhill. Then, you know, when you rebuff a guy and then they get angry and vengeful after that? So I only lasted 3 months because I had 3 months of, oh God, just like, I mean, God, I'm sure most women have had a boss like that where they're so offended by being rebuffed that they then just turn nasty. But anyway, yeah, I mean, really, I feel bad at saying my worst jobs because it's nothing like,
I mean,
poor Mark's job. Oh my God. Or
God.
Yeah.
Well, I'm loving having our regulars contribute to People's Pulse, and I'm love having sort of new people slide in as well. So please do
And
follow
if you
our
haven't
stories.
contributed, I will be tagging you and you will be contributing something.
If we ask a question and Rhonda thinks that you are going to be the one that has a really good answer, she's going to hunt you down online.
Do you know who didn't contribute this week was Isla, which is a real shame because Isla always has a fucking story. She never doesn't have a story. They're always hilarious.
Imagine she said when she worked with me.
Oh,
she wouldn't. That was the best time.
Do you know what though? Worst job. I feel like this one was a bit depressing.
Let's focus on the fact that there was a lot of poo, and that's always funny.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
That might be the theme of our next People's Pulse.
Funniest place you've shot yourself? The last time you shot yourself?
I mean, the reason I love that topic is because there's really nothing more humiliating that can happen to you.
It's just so funny because you have like such a specific sense of humor. We've talked about it like last week as well, where you're like, you get violently angry when someone's not funny.
Violently, just like, I just get angry.
Yeah, and like you get really, like, you think sort of sexual innuendos and that kind of joke. It honestly, but you get that smug like look on your face like it's beneath you, but then poo jokes you fucking love.
I'll tell you what, there's 2 things that will never fail to me. You know, I don't think farting's funny. That's the funny thing about it. I don't think that's funny. Burping, farting, not into that. But if somebody falls over or shit themselves.
Oh my God, what about when they fall over and shit themselves at the same time?
Somebody has a story like that I need to hear. But you know what it is? I think it's because it's like the ultimate.
Let's not brush over that. Can we just put out an appeal?
Yeah, we need to know.
We need to know stories about when you've fallen over and shot yourself, and or stories of falling over and
You know, I think the reason I find it so funny is there's really nothing worse that can have more humiliating than being in public and falling over or shitting yourself. Luckily, the latter hasn't happened, but I've fallen over in public so many fucking times. And every time you have to laugh about it.
You just have to. I nearly pissed myself today because I had to go for my pre-assessment tests at the hospital for my new boobies. And I knew that they were going to do a pregnancy test because, you know, like with a lot of operations, they just have to make sure you're not pregnant. I'm not pregnant. That's not where this story is going. But because I knew they were doing a pregnancy test, I was desperate for a wee, but I didn't want to go before my appointment because I thought if I pee now and then they ask me to pee again in a minute, I'm not going to have any wee left, you know? So I was sitting in the waiting room.
You could have just peed in a cup.
Well,
saved it for him.
What cup do I have? And then they're going to be like, oh, I need it sterile. And then when I walk into the appointment, I was like, I just peed into this coffee cup in case you need it. Like, you didn't think that through, Rhonda. Yeah, so finally they call me in. I was like 10, 15 minutes early. They call me, the nurse calls me in And she's like, I'm going to do blood tests and swabs and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, so you don't need my pee. And she's like, no. And I was like, I ran out of the room to go have a wee. And it was the longest wee in my life. And I came back in and I was like, I'm really sorry. I was holding it for you.
Oh, God.
But you can imagine.
Oh, God. Some of the worst moments of my life were like when I desperately needed to pee.
It's like the worst pain.
Oh, it is the worst pain. You can't concentrate on anything. You start sweating. You can't concentrate.
I feel like got physically ill. Like I thought I'm gonna throw up from having to hold in a wee. Yeah.
You know, that was actually one of the worst things about teaching. I spent 12 years worried that I was gonna need to pee or that I was gonna piss myself or shit myself because you literally cannot leave the kids. You know.
I know. I remember when you were thinking about doing your teaching course, we had whole conversations about. But what about how you can't go for a pee for 45 minutes at a time?
Well, an hour, an hour.
Yeah.
Fucking hour. Yeah, well, it was problematic, you know. And it was only actually in my last year, no, not my last year of teaching, the year that I was pregnant, and I actually had to say to the technician, I've got to fucking pee. You're going to have to take over. But that was okay, because as long as there's an adult in the room, it's okay. But yeah, I said, that job was not good for my anxiety, because I literally spent every fucking period for 12 years thinking this could be the day. But next week's People's Pulse, I'm already looking forward to it.
Yeah, because it's going to be poo related. Inevitably. All right, well, next week I will be presenting a topic to you.
Oh, next week. This is the last time our Patreons are going to see your old boobs.
Well, I just want to clarify that my boobs are very rarely in shot and they're always covered.
Yeah, don't say that. We could have got more Patreon subscriptions.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So
you're gonna go from having
before and after
to having titties.
Yeah.
That's what the Kardashians said. Boobs are when they're big, titties are when they're small.
Is it? Yeah.
You know, the philosophers.
The philosophers that are the social commentators that are the Kardashians.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
oh, and speaking of which, Kim Kardashian just released the most ridiculous thing, I think, and I do love her clothes range. She just released a bra with nipples, built-in nipples, so you can look like you have like perky nipples all the time, which I can't imagine feeling more self-conscious walking around with a bra that has nipples. Yeah.
I need to look into this a little bit more. My immediate thought was someone who's had like a mastectomy.
Well, that would be a good reason.
Or like inverted nipples. But you still wouldn't want to.
Yeah. I mean, it literally is like 2 spikes on a bra.
Oh, so it's for people who want to look like they're turned on.
Yeah. I can't imagine walking around feeling more self-conscious.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to have a little. Let's fucking post that on our socials and see what people think, because I need to understand what am I missing that I don't want one of this bra.
I mean, I never thought that there was a gap in the market for that or a need for it, but I'm sure it's doing well because it's Kim Kardashian's line. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got to say today.
All right. Well, see you guys next week, and we love you very much. Bye. Bye. Love you. Bye. Bye.
Hey there. Thanks for being a loyal listener.
Do you need a new website or want to boost your social media performance? Or do you hate podcast editing? You've tried optimizing your website and social media channels, but you're still not getting the listeners, downloads, and engagement you want?
We, the Safié sisters, love helping people with tasks that they hate. We know a thing or two about podcasts, websites, and social media, and we love working with other podcasters and business owners.
So why not head over to switchbladesisterssocialclub.com and go to our Work With Us section. We believe in collaboration over competition. A rising tide raises all ships.
Bye!